Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit more about trackbar controls, and the main reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to end with an example of using if then else. So if you haven't looked at the introduction to trackbar controls that I put up previously, go and have a look at that video first. That's the one immediately above this one on the Moodle page. If you have watched it, then you'll be familiar with this. So basically what I've done is I've duplicated the label, images and trackbar 3 times, and I've created 3 different labels, and I've then set 3 labels just above each of these trackbars. So the idea is as when the program runs, as the user slides the bar along, this will be updated with the value of the trackbar. Okay, so let's first of all just have a look at the properties of the trackbar, because I've made some changes. First of all, I've named each trackbar. So this is called trackbar Hamilton, this is called trackbar Auckland, and this is called trackbar Tauranga, to go with these big labels. Second thing I've done is I've renamed the labels. So this is label Hamilton, this is label Auckland, and this is label Tauranga. Third thing I've done is change the properties. So in the previous video I talked about the minimum and maximum. The idea in this example is that these trackbars are going to represent percentages. So the user can set 3 percentages, one for each city, and it's some measure of how good the weather is. So 100% would be 100% sunny, 0% would be raining, and so you can choose anything in between it. So we can see that the minimum there is set to 0, the maximum is set to 100, and I've also changed the tick frequency. So you can, by default this property is set to 1, and if I change that to 1, you'll see the effect. So the effect is that we've got far too many ticks here to sort of make sense of, because we've got 100 different values starting from here, going 0, going all the way up to 100. So by changing the tick frequency to 5, I get a nicer spacing of the ticks. Let's have a look at the code. Okay, now there's quite a bit going on here, so what I'll do is start with these 3 things here. These are the events. So these are doing exactly what I talked about in the previous video. Whenever one of the trackbars changes, it then updates the corresponding label. So what we can see here is pretty much exactly what was happening in the first video. We've got the trackbar name _scroll, so it's the scroll event that's occurring. And what we're doing when there's a scroll event is we're updating the text of a label, and the label is Hamilton in this case. And what we're updating it to is the value from the trackbar. So we extract that first, we then convert it to a string, and we then append a %, because these values are meant to be percentages. So they get set to the text of the label here. So this is the Hamilton trackbar and label, this is the Auckland trackbar and label, and this is the Tauranga trackbar and label. Now you will note here that I've put a default value of all question marks for these labels, and we really don't want the user, when they're running the program, to see that. Those are just default values that are there just for us when we're designing the user interface. So we really don't want all these question marks to appear when the program is running. And what we can do to get around that, well, first of all, we know that whenever the trackbar is scrolled, the question marks will go away, because these labels are going to be updated. Okay, so the question marks stored in these text properties, they'll get overwritten straight away. However, before the trackbar is scrolled, the labels will have the question marks in them. So what can we do? The answer is to look at this thing called a constructor here. So this is a bit of code that runs at the start of your program. So when the form first opens, before it's done anything else, it runs this code here. So what we can see that here is that there's the word public, so we ignore that for now. There's the word form1. So form1 is the name of our window. So if we go back to here, we can see that this is called form1. So form1 is the name of the window. And here's a block of code because there's curly braces. So inside the block of code, what we've got is several things. There's initialize component. Now that gets put there. That's put there by default automatically, and that just initializes everything on the form. So anything else that we want to initialize, we can put after this method call here. So this is a method call called initialize component, and so our own initialization consists of these 3 lines here, and what you can see is that they're just identical to the ones we've got down here. So instead of doing each label update individually, what I'm doing is each label update all at the same time. So they're going to take whatever the default values are for the track bars, turn them into strings, added a %sign, and shove them into the labels. Okay. Let's now run the program and see what happens, and we can see that the initialization has worked because each of the labels there is initially set to 0% because the sliders are set to 0%. So we now can move the sliders around, and we can see that the scroll events are updating the labels correctly. The percentages are being updated as we go along. So on this particular day, it's sort of 57% sunny in Hamilton, 100% sunny in Auckland, and only 24% sunny in Tauranga. Okay, so the track bars are all working correctly. The next thing I want to do in this video is just go over a way of using an if statement to check which of these 3 cities has the highest % of sunniness. So you can see here there's a check button here. Currently it doesn't do anything, so I'm going to stop the program. I'm going to go back to the form designer. I'm going to double click on this, and that will bring up an event called button check _ click. So it's telling us when the button is clicked on, then do something. And what we're going to do is we are going to start using some if statements. So remember that an if statement consists of the word if, and then an expression, and then some curly braces. So the expression here has to be something that returns true or false, and this is a block of code that is executed if this expression is true. So let's start by seeing if Hamilton is the sunniest. So we'll go track bar Hamilton dot value. Now if it's greater than the value of Auckland, so is Hamilton sunnier than Auckland? And is it sunnier than Tauranga? So let's turn that into code. There we go. So if we read this, what we're saying is if the value of the Hamilton track bar is greater than the value of the Auckland track bar, and the value of the Hamilton track bar is greater than the value of the Tauranga track bar, then we're going to do something. So we're going to pop up a message box, and I'm just going to say Hamilton is the sunniest. Okay. Now we could just run the program like this and it should work. However, I think it is it's a good practice just to put parentheses around your expressions. So this just enforces the order that you want the expressions to happen in, because if you look at what we've got here, we've actually got 4 different values inside the parentheses, and we've got three operators. There's the greater than, there's the and there's the greater than. Now the computer should execute the operations in the correct order, but there's a small chance that it could do something wrong. So something could go wrong. It could try and say do the and first, which is not what we want. We then get a program that is not working properly. So to force the computer to do the right thing, I do recommend that you put parentheses around each of the individual expressions. So we've got expression 1 and expression 2, and the two expressions all have parentheses around them. So let's test this out. So when I click check, the prediction here is that if Hamilton has the highest percent of sunniness, then we'll get this message. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Okay, so let's run the program. If I click here, nothing happens. Let's give Auckland and Tauranga some sunniness. Again, nothing's happening. Now let's move Hamilton to a very high value, 98. It's the highest. Let's click check, and yes, we get the message Hamilton is the sunniest, so it does work. Okay, but just knowing whether Hamilton is the sunniest is not really ideal. We really want to have a message showing for each of the two other cities. So let's now extend our if statement so it does the same kind of thing, but for Auckland and Tauranga. So let's copy and paste. We're going to use an else, because we know that if this is false, then this may be true or false, but if this is true, then what we're going to put down here must be false. And what we're going to put down here is we're just going to change this to Auckland. Which means, of course, we've got to change this to Hamilton. So if Hamilton's not the sunniest, then if Auckland is sunnier than Hamilton and Auckland is sunnier than Tauranga, then say Auckland is the sunniest. Okay, and we do the same thing for Tauranga. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. We've got a nice three-part if statement. I think everything looks correct. We don't have any obvious mistakes there. Let's run the program. Let's give some values. So this time we'll make Auckland the sunniest at 100%. Tauranga is the not. Check. Yes, we get Auckland as the sunniest. Let's play around with these sliders. Now Hamilton is the sunniest. Yep. Now let's make Tauranga the sunniest. Yep, we get Tauranga as the sunniest. So it seems to work pretty well. There is one case, however, actually several cases, where this program is not going to generate any message box. And the question is does anyone know what those situations are? What I'll tell you is you can have a clue by looking at how the if statement is working. We've got greater thans here. We're always using greater than. Everywhere we've got greater than. We haven't accounted for the situation where there is two track bars with exactly the same value, like this. So now we've got Hamilton and Auckland having exactly the same. If we run this, Tauranga is at 90. We're going to get Tauranga as the sunniest, but if Tauranga is actually lower, so now we've got Hamilton and Auckland being the same, none of these three cases is going to be true, right? Because in fact we've got two of them are the same. If we click check, yeah, you see that there's nothing happening. So our program is fine for picking up the single sunniest city when there is a single sunniest city, but it fails badly when we've got at least two cities with the same sunniness. And that's a bit of a problem, because now we're going to have to check for all the different combinations of equally sunny cities. So if you think about it, we've got quite a few. We've got Hamilton and Auckland could be the same, Hamilton and Tauranga could be the same, or Auckland and Tauranga could be the same, or they could all be the same. So let's try to deal with this by adding some more cases to the if statement. So we're going to end up with a very long if statement, but that's all good, it's fine. So let's start else if, and we're going to consider the case where Hamilton and Auckland are the same and they're equally greater than Tauranga. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this across down here, and we're going to replace the greater than with double equals. So if Hamilton's track bar value is equal to Auckland, so they're both the same value, and we'll just copy this straight down, then we need to have a slightly different message box. This time the message box is going to be that Hamilton and Auckland are equally the sunniest. Okay, so the case here of the if statement is if the track bar Hamilton value equals the track bar Auckland value, and Hamilton is greater than Tauranga, so that means Tauranga is lower, then Hamilton and Auckland must be the sunniest equally. Let's run that and test it out. Okay, we'll set, just make sure our other cases work there. There's Hamilton is the sunniest. Now let's set Auckland to 56 and Tauranga to something much lower like 23 and check, and yes, we get Hamilton and Auckland are equally the sunniest. If Tauranga is greater, we should default back to one of the first three situations, because now we only have a single sunniest value, and we get Tauranga is the sunniest. Okay, so let's add to the if statements. So we're going to just add two more. This is going to be the case where Tauranga and Auckland are the same, and so we have if Tauranga equals Auckland, and in fact we want Tauranga is greater than Hamilton, because Hamilton's the odd one out of that pair. So we change that. That should be correct. We get Tauranga and Hamilton are equally the sunniest, and then the third case here is we've done Hamilton and Auckland, we've done Tauranga and Auckland. The last one is when Hamilton and Tauranga are the sunniest. So if track bar Hamilton equals track bar Tauranga, and track bar Hamilton is greater than track bar Auckland, so they're both sunnier than Auckland, then we want to say Hamilton and Tauranga are equally the sunniest. So let's run that. We should be able to pick up any pairs of cities that are the sunniest. So here we've got Auckland and Tauranga being the sunniest. Yep, we get the correct message. Let's make Auckland and Hamilton the sunniest again. Why didn't that work? It didn't work because they're not they're not equal. Let's make sure they're equal. Yep, Hamilton and Auckland are equally the sunniest. And let's make Hamilton and Tauranga equally the sunniest this time. Check, yep, Hamilton and Tauranga are equally the sunniest. And of course, if we set Auckland back to 79, it's the highest. We should default to one of the first three situations where only a single city is the sunniest. Okay, we've accounted for just about all of the possible input combinations. We've accounted for the three situations where one city is the sunniest. We've accounted for three situations where two cities are the sunniest. There's one more situation that I can think of that we need to account for that we haven't done. And can anyone guess what that is? Well, you're watching a video, so I can't wait for an answer. The last situation is where we have all three cities being the sunniest. So here I've set all three to 79%, and if we click check, we can see that nothing happens. So for all of the six if statements that we've got here, okay, that are here, none of them have a true condition, so none of them actually work. So let's stop that. How can we deal with this situation? Well, the answer is we add one more else, and this time we don't need an if statement, because we know that if we get down to the end of this sequence of if statements and they're all the ones above are false, then this must be the case where all three of the cities have an equal amount of sunniness. So let's copy that message box down, and we'll just say if in this situation all cities are equally the sunniest. Okay. Let's run the program, and we can see that by default they're all 0%. So if I click check, we get all cities are equally the sunniest. I can check the other cases quickly as well. You probably should always keep on checking all the different combinations to make sure your program is still working. Oh, Hamilton and Auckland are equally the sunniest. That's because Tauranga was at 78 or 77, not 78. Now they should all be equally the sunniest, and yeah, we see that it's working. So overall, our little program is working quite nicely, and it's doing exactly what we thought or what we wanted it to do. The last thing I just wanted to do on this example is think about comments. So if we look at this bit of the code here, it's a huge if statement. Okay, there's 7 different situations. It could be tricky to actually read all of this, so it's quite handy to get in the practice of adding comments. So for each of the cases, I might just add a simple comment. So this is the case where Hamilton alone is the highest, so I might just say sort of, is Hamilton the sunniest? Okay, and this comment here above the if statement just tells me what the if statement is trying to do. So I'll just copy that down to here. This is the situation, is Auckland the sunniest? Okay. And we've got, this is doing the same thing for Tauranga. Then we go down to these are the pairwise cases where we've got 2 cities being the sunniest. So Hamilton and Auckland the sunniest. Are Tauranga and Auckland the sunniest? Are Hamilton and Tauranga the sunniest? And the last case is the situation where everything has failed. So we say down here, we could just write a comment saying otherwise they must all be equally sunny. Okay, and we've commented our code to explain what each part of this fairly complicated if statement is doing. So I'll put this project up on Moodle to have a look at it, go through it, make sure you understand exactly how this if statement works, because it's essential to sort of understand what's going on when you see code like this. Okay, thank you, and stay posted for the next video.